everyone. We'll wait just a minute to get started. So if you're watching it on the recorded part, then you can just skip a minute.
All right, let's get started.
Okay, sounds good. I'm Helen from Waypoint Immigration. I'm an attorney. And today we're going to talk about our EB-2 NIWs still getting approved. So EB-2 NIWs is something that I work on all day, every day. It's one of my main focus areas that I've had. So, I feel like there was definitely a time when we were getting quite a few RFEs on our applications, and these applications were submitted around the transition between Biden to Trump. So I think, kind of looking back at it, it kind of makes sense, for maybe the officer to question some things with national importance, since there's clearly a very large difference between presidents, between Biden and Trump, as to what may still be nationally important, or maybe how it is viewed a little bit differently between presidents, and to kind of see if it still aligns from, if it was submitted while Biden was still president to now Trump being president, if it still makes sense, and that sort of a thing. So, dare I say, definitely don't want to jinx anything by any means, but we have been seeing more approvals, even without RFEs coming in. And, a lot of these clients that we have typically are in the tech field. They're in AI, machine learning, maybe supply chain or semiconductors, cybersecurity. Those are all kind of like, I see a lot of the main industries, and healthcare as well. So today this was yesterday. Yesterday, we just got one of those RFEs approved. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that specific scenario. And if anyone has any questions on NIWs in general, or about anything I'm saying, please feel free to put it into the comments in the chat. And then we'll do questions at the end. But so anyway, this application was submitted last year. So this was submitted, I believe, in December, maybe even a little bit earlier. But it got an RFE, and it was due. The RFE was due January 26th. So this is clearly only days after Trump is president. So this RFE was triggered. It was submitted under Biden, and the RFE was pretty much triggered also under Biden. So that kind of thing that I was saying about the transition doesn't apply to this particular RFE. But anyway, so this person did use premium processing. That's why they heard back on the RFE as quickly as they did. And this particular person's proposed endeavor was to revolutionize U.S. manufacturing through development and implementation of advanced software tools such as predictive maintenance platforms, digital twin simulations, and inventory optimization systems. So, that sounds like right off the bat like something that you could see as being impactful to the country, something that is helpful beyond just this person's employer and things like that. But even still, all three prongs were questioned. So this person has a master's degree, so they accepted that to show that they were part of the advanced degree qualification. So that part was accepted, but then all three remaining prongs were questioned. So for prong one, which is if your proposed endeavor has substantial merit or national importance, they were saying in this RFE that their proposed endeavor itself had lacked details, despite us giving them details, of course. But So they were questioning the proposed endeavor. They were saying the proposed endeavor does not reflect national importance of this specific proposed endeavor. They questioned if it had significance beyond the employer. And again, just kind of showing the impact of their specific proposed endeavor. And they had acknowledged that, we had submitted documents as proof and things like that. But their claim was that the documents were kind of more broadly tailored and not as specific to this particular person's proposed endeavor. So I know that's something that I talk about a lot on consultations and on our little LinkedIn chats that we have every week. But, they don't want to know just, is your field important? Is your industry important? They want to know if your work is important, your specific work. So to kind of counteract this part of the RFE, we written up a new proposed endeavor statement that the client signed, and we attached as additional evidence. And this really talks more, like we go into even more detail than we do on the initial application, which is still a lot of detail, but to kind of go with the whole RFE thing, definitely talking more about the client's methods, their techniques, their technologies, how they're going to do the things that they're claiming. So that is something when I'm looking at an application and I'm, editing it and reviewing it and trying to tweak it for strategy, I'm always asking myself, like, okay, does this answer how? I don't only want to know why is what you're doing important or what you are doing, but I want to know how are you doing these things. So we, replied back again with a proposed endeavor statement that described more of the how, because I feel like that's maybe the part that people miss the most when they're talking about their proposed endeavor. So definitely adding in more details as to the how. Adding in short-term goals, long-term goals. Nobody has a crystal ball, is what I always say. It's hard to always say, how will you do things in the future when maybe that technology hasn't really been developed in quite the same way. But obviously you use your most educated knowledge of the subject matter and you kind of explain it in a common sense way. That's what the officer is looking for. They're looking for common sense. Does it make sense? Does it all kind of line up? Does everything kind of streamline with each other? So that's what they're really looking for. We also always usually reply back with additional, research as to how it is nationally important and different things that may have, just kind of like furthering the argument. And you can always use things that you did also send in initially and kind of just re-arguing it in a new way. So it's a little bit of a combination of maybe re-arguing things already on the record as well as adding in new things in the RFE itself. So then going on to prong 2, in this RFE, they questioned the letters, and our letters are always very specific as to projects that the client has done, that client's role in the project, the impact of the project. We add in independent letters and things like that. But the RFE questioned the letters specifically, that they said that they failed to provide any information or objective documentary evidence that the petitioner is well positioned. So we reply back with saying how the letters do in fact show those things, and then we also add in new letters. So typically we'll add in a new letter for prong 1, that's like an independent kind of a letter, someone that can say how your work is nationally important, someone maybe at a higher level. And then for well positioned, we would have a new letter from someone that you work with, saying more about the actual work you do and giving that kind of perspective and how the work you are doing is impactful beyond just your company. The RFE also confused some of the press releases that we included to show media attention on the petitioner's work projects with something that was actually authored by him. So, this says to me that the officer didn't really look at things clearly, because this application did include maybe 1 or 2 publications. I forget exactly however many the client did, but then we also included press releases on the work projects just to show how, it's impactful and more project details and different things about the project itself. So they were confusing the petition, the these articles with they were saying like, oh, this doesn't show that the client was the author. And well, we weren't showing it for those purposes. It was a very clearly defined. So sometimes these RFEs, the officer doesn't get that much time to review things, and maybe they're getting it mixed up. So in the RFE, maybe you have to clarify some things like that. This client also had certificates and memberships and an award, and they claimed in the RFE that they were insufficient because it does not establish that the petitioner has impacted the field of endeavor beyond that of his peers. So, we argued back saying that they did, and that they're also used to show that he can be impactful beyond his employer. It's very much like showing that the standard that they're using is correct. These certificates were not used for prong 1, they were used for prong 2, which is showing that the client is well positioned to do their proposed endeavor. We're not saying that, sorry, I'm like losing my train of thought as I'm talking, but, just kind of arguing back, saying that these certificates, memberships, and awards are a unique combination. How does it show that the client is different from others in the field? How can this be used to help them further their proposed endeavor to be impactful in the future? How does this help set them up for success, sort of a thing? They also focus on the petitioner's work and leadership in the development. Oh, this is something else that we also added in. So the client's like flagship kind of work projects had to do with the development of advanced predictive maintenance platforms, digital twin technologies for global manufacturing leaders. And we kind of just gave more additional documents relating to those projects that we had already discussed, just to kind of show more documents and more evidence that the client was able to then give us to reply back with that. So, and they also questioned prong 3, but there was nothing really unique about prong 3. Prong 3 is usually like a templated kind of an RFE that you get. If you don't satisfy prong 1 or 2, you automatically don't satisfy prong 3. So that was nothing that really stood out. I didn't take any additional notes down for this on that. But ultimately, we replied back with that detailed proposed endeavor statement, 3 new letters, which were a mix of work letters and independent letters, new work documents that the client was able to give us, and then, of course, all of the different legal argument and kind of showing what was on the record, how it satisfied, as well as the new documents to help push the officer over the edge. So, this RFE did question all 3, but then it did result in an approval. So just because you do get an RFE doesn't mean that it is potentially the end of the world. There are different things that we can do to get around that. They do say that your chances of approval do probably dip down a bit if you do get an RFE, but that doesn't mean it's 0. This is prime example. This person, they questioned everything. We pushed back and gave more documents, and then they approved it. So I think that this is a good sign. I'm hoping that this is not like a fluke of things, that maybe things are starting to even out a bit with the RFEs or approvals. There's still definitely like a high level of scrutiny and additional things. So you still have to make sure that you have a tight case, that things all make sense, that things are streamlined, and that you're using solid and impactful evidence to show the officer. So, by no means do I think that the level of what you need to show has changed. I just think that maybe they are more inclined to look at, I'm not sure. It's hard to say without that crystal ball, looking over the USCIS's officer's shoulder to see exactly how they're doing these things. We have also seen people end up getting denied that had a stronger case, and some people that get approved that had a weaker case. So, I think that maybe things are in the middle of shifting again, and I'm hoping it'll be in everyone's favor this time. So, it's kind of, I guess, we'll just see. Time will tell if these approvals we've been getting are kind of going to be continuing, if they're going to be changing at all. Maybe these are just specific things that just happen to get approved all in a row. We'll have to see if it's maybe the start of another kind of a trend, or like I said, if these are just kind of one-off situations. But I think it definitely does, give hope to those that are looking into this category, and just kind of, if this is something that you want to pursue, it definitely is worth a shot, as to looking at this as an example of what might be helpful to you, especially those that are here on H-1B, with perm kind of being up in the air for a lot of people. And NIW may still be the best route. And I think that, hopefully things are kind of shifting, and we'll just have to keep on top of what kind of comes out of USCIS and how things kind of progress from here, now that Trump is, at least 2 months in office, and can kind of see how things will go from here. So if anyone has any questions, we can look at those now. And if you're looking at this on the recording, you can still post a comment and I'll get back to you. Like, I can comment back at that point.
Beacom asks, if someone nears the 45-day marker, are they still getting RFE? This was a trend earlier, but is that still the case?
Yeah, so these people that have been getting approved are close to the 45-day mark. So just because you're getting closer to that 45-day mark, I would say that does not necessarily mean that you may be getting an RFE. Some of these are getting approved as they are getting closer to that 45-day mark. So I would say, previously, maybe that was more of the case where you were maybe expecting more RFEs as you're getting to that, premium processing deadline, so to speak, but that's not always the case anymore. So I would say it's not necessarily like a doom and gloom situation here. It might still work out.
Alvin asks, what's the current backlog look like for NIW? If someone is in the last third year of STEM OPT, is NIW recommended, since it will take more than 2-3 years for the whole process? Thank you.
So, starting off from the very beginning, it takes our firm, I'd say 3 to 4, maybe 5 months, depending upon the client situation, to actually get these applications created and then submitted. Then if you do premium processing or regular processing, premium will just get you a response faster. It does not, bypass any sort of the line, so to speak. So if you do get approved, whether it be through premium or regular, you then still obviously have a backlog to wait for people that are rest of world, meaning not from China or from India, Philippines, and Mexico. Especially, people in those categories have a different backlog. So, typically we were saying it takes about 2 to 3 years for NIWs to get to their priority date. And I think that probably has extended a little bit, and it may even continue to extend a little bit. So we've been saying more like, plan on maybe 3 to 4 years, maybe even 5, depending upon how things kind of continuously go this year. But if you are from China and especially India, you have a very long backlog. So this is not going to result in a green card anytime soon for people from those specific countries. But from someone from anywhere else in the world, I would still plan on 2, 3, 4, and maybe worst case scenario, 5 years before you'd get your green card.
Rita asks, are we getting approvals after an RFE response in current trend?
So this was one of the first RFEs that we had gotten when I would say like the trend, so to speak, started. So we have some that are pending, but a lot of the RFEs that are part of the trend that I was talking about are still in progress. So I'm hoping that since this RFE got approved, maybe it's a good sign of things to come for the other clients that also had gotten an RFE triggered. Yeah, you can, oh, sorry, you can read it.
Oops. Can we file EB-1A parallel to NIW pending status? Does it has any impact?
No, you can do an NIW at the same time. Your employer can do an NIW at the same time. Your client, I keep saying client, your employer can also do a perm. You can do an EB-1A. They're all separate from each other, so there is no like interaction there. So you can be filing for an NIW and also put in for an EB-1A at the same time.
Beacom asks, when does the premium processing window begin? The day the case is received or the day case goes into active review. My dates are January 23rd for a case reviewed and January 29th for a case under active review. Which one should be considered as the beginning of premium processing window?
It starts from the day that it's received. So it says on your receipt notice, what the date was, which also would then be your priority date. I mean, not all the time. Some people have a priority date that they could claim, but most likely if you are, doing an I-140 for the first time, you have the priority date would be the same date as the date received, and it goes by date received.
Oops. Can we initiate spouse EAD if NIW is pending or in review or in RFE?
So I'm assuming you're an H-1B and your spouse is an H-4 holder, of which you would then have to wait for an approved I-140 in order for that spouse to apply for an EAD. So if it's pending or you have an RFE, it's only once it's actually approved could you go that route.
Right. Other questions? Anything else you want to cover?
Nothing really. Just saying that, I'm kind of hopeful that things are kind of maybe getting pulled out of that RFE slump that we were having and kind of going towards the end of the tunnel, seeing the light there. So if anyone has any questions, they can put it in the comment, or if you had something else to tack on. Oh.
Hey, Karim asks, would you recommend traveling abroad on H-1B considering latest trends?
So, technically H-1B, you're free to travel, come and go as you will. There has been some things in the news saying that people with non-immigrant status or even those with green cards have been getting questioned. Maybe if there is something on your record that could be a bit of a red flag that previously was just kind of, you were just like waved on and approved to just, and come back, that might be questioned more now. So, I would say if you don't think that you have any of those red flags, it should still be okay. With the way that things are going, though, it's really tough to say. I would say if you have anything that would be, like giving you your own red flag in your brain that you're questioning, like, oh, I don't know if they're going to actually, consider this when I come back after leaving and coming back to America, I would definitely kind of flag that to an attorney and discuss any of that and how it might be seen these days.
Umaru asks, do you foresee EB-1A become stagnant, not current?
You mean like with the backlog? I mean, I would probably assume that that's also going to get an additional delay, like the NIWs just seem to be kind of growing with the amount of time waiting to get to the green card. I'm not quite as sure with that, but I would just assume that with the current administration, more delays across the board sort of thing.
Great. Anything else you want to cover?
Nope, not at this moment.
Right. All right then. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.